Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode. Now, if you have built a recruitment business that was meant to give you freedom, but maybe it feels like it is glue stuck together with, dare I say, late nights. For me, it would be a lot of caffeine. I know I do drink coffee. Hard work, then this conversation is going to change everything for you. Because today, Jane and I are here and we are talking about why building your business around your natural strengths and passions is 100% essential. This is not fluffy, by the way, before anyone thinks that we're going to talk about things that are fluffy. This is all about how the biggest block to scale is actually the role that you have accidentally put yourself in. And we call it the chief of frigging everything. So, the question for you today that we're going to be investigating and diving in and dissecting is, imagine if you could make more revenue without doing more, in fact, doing less. And what if your business brought in energy instead of draining it? And what if your team was already out there, but you just needed the right model to make space for them? That is what we're covering today. So, Jane, shall we dive in?
Let's go. Let's go.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to start. I'm going to start this off because, we call it the chief of frigging everything trap. And what do I mean by that? Like, what are we talking about? Well, most recruitment founders, they start their business with a dream, right? And that dream is, I'm doing the work that I love. I want to earn great money from it. And I want to make the difference. Like, I definitely see this. I'm not about you, Jane, but I see a lot of recruitment business owners that start up that really want to make a difference. Like, their purpose is so concrete in what they want to do. And then somewhere along the line, that dream becomes a trap and they are stuck doing everything. So they're billing to firefighting to invoicing to admin to,
Yeah.
I don't know, changing their I don't know, cleaning their office, right? Could be anything.
Getting the milk for the tea.
That's
And
it.
weighing
That's
the
it.
offer. Yeah.
And the thing about people that often start recruitment business owners, I'm going to call them like the rainmaker, they are not just the biller, but they also become this, delivery lead. If you're anything like me, you might become your team therapist, tech troubleshooter, person buying the print ink on your way to the office. So what happens is that you feel like you kind of step right back. And actually, the whole reason why you started a recruitment business is collapsing around you. And you should be more strategic. You want to be more strategic. You want to work on the business, not in the business, but your calendar is jammed, with the urgent and not important. You might be making some money, but you're not making enough money, or you're certainly not keeping it, and you're definitely not enjoying it. And this is a real issue. And it isn't about capability. I really want to stress that. It's not about capability of the individual. This is actually about the structure that you have built. And this is just an indication that it is time to redesign it. So, Jane, we see this a lot, don't we? And I know, you probably have lots of experience, not just with our clients where you see this, but also, we can relate to this, having been big billers and then moving to manage teams, right?
Yeah, I think it's the journey of a solopreneur to becoming a business owner to that point where you start to hold your breath going, if I start to step away, what's going to happen? Because it's that classic saying, isn't it, that when you try and build a business, what you actually typically end up with is a job, and then more jobs than what you ever did before, and then the blinkers come down and you fail to see how your business can run outside of you. And therefore, if that's then not a business, that's just something where you are the nucleus, if you're not replaceable in some way, shape or form. And the same way that a baby goes from being born to crawling to toddling to walking to running, we see this in the life cycle of a recruitment business owner. And some people get stuck there and get stuck there for a very long time. And others are able to breeze through this stage and look at scalability and look at how they can stop being. And I would very much argue that the first thing that they need to do, when, if this resonates with you, if you think, well, actually, yeah, I am the person that gets the milk on the way in, I do the one-to-ones when I have time, because sometimes I'm dealing with the key accounts, and then maybe in the evening I'm resourcing on behalf of my resourcer because my resourcer is not quite finding the right candidates. If you're listening to thinking that's me, I probably argue that the first thing that you need to do to start breaking away from this is accept that you are the bottleneck. Now, you've said it really kind, Katy, and said, it's done by accident, and it is. But what moves you from this is recognition that actually I'm the bottleneck in my business. Because some of us don't want to let go. When I've ran my businesses, there's been lots of things that I don't want to let go of because I really enjoy doing them, but actually my value is better somewhere else, and I can enjoy doing that as well. So
Mm,
that would always
mm.
be for me. If you want to move away from being chief of everything, the first thing you've got to do is get yourself above the line and accountable and go, actually, accidentally, I've done this and now I need to fix it.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I totally agree with that. And I also see something else. And this, came to, well, not just came to light yesterday, but I was talking to one of our clients yesterday, a lady that's in our program, and this is a classic situation for her, which is that I think for a lot of people, it's the fact that we can't always be brutally honest with ourselves about what it is that we want. So
Yep.
what I mean by that is we're kind of stuck in like this self betrayal, because unless we can really commit and admit what our core desires are, and also like what are our boundaries, what are our values, what we can do is we build unknowingly, I'm going to say, you build a business which actually comes from your ego or state of ego. I'm not saying people are egotistical, but like you're not listening to what your heart says, you're listening to what your
Yep.
head said. Yeah. And I can put my hand up to that 100%, because I've been there more than once. And and it's very enticing, isn't it? Because when you're talking figures and when you're talking money, there is that part of you that goes, oh, status. Oh, yeah, I want to be seen, because we all want to be recognized. For our talents, that's really important. And so I think a lot of people start a business, and when they build that business, when they think about structuring that business, we tend to go to the default of what we see everyone else do, because we think big is better. And
Yeah.
so we chase that idea of what success on paper might look like, right? Big team, big office, big targets. But actually, that gets us sucked into a role that we don't enjoy, absolutely drains you. You're also, classically trading time for money. And it also, like you're saying, it forces us into wearing hats that we never meant to wear, and we're not meant to wear, and we don't even like wearing. And that's when we've then built this sort of beast that we're stuck in, and we don't know how we can get out of it, because we've architectured something that's become this engine that's like off on a freight train.
Yep.
How do you unpick that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I was nearly going to say it's a challenge. And then as the words came out of, well, started to transfer from my head to my mouth, I disagreed with myself. So I don't think it is a challenge. It's the skill of possibly delegation, but more being, to echo what you said, realistic about what you want. Because interesting enough, I had a call with one of my clients yesterday, and I asked the question, how many clients do you want? And he just went, loads. And I went, cool, how many? And he went, about 200. And then I was like, okay, that's interesting. Let's break that down. So if you had 200 clients giving you jobs that you'd be making billions, can you service 200 clients now? And we break it all down. I said, so really, what do you want? What's the revenue figure? Like, is this about revenue, or is this about status? Because there are some people that
Mm.
actually and we've worked for them. Having a large recruitment company with 300 consultants is their happy place. But certainly for most of the people that we work with, it's actually about having a high standard of life with a business where you can go paddleboarding on a Friday and do a couple of weeks or a month traveling, and it runs itself, which still brings you in a high income. And I would argue that certainly for most people, I suspect listen to this podcast, that's what we're aiming for. So if we can get clear on that,
Yeah.
and we've got a really focused goal, and then we can start to say, how do we get there? So if we want to make, I don't know, if you want to turn over 500,000 and put 250,000 into your back pocket, right, how do I maintain the business costs at 250, and how do I take profit levels of 250? For me, we've got a starting point. And I think that's where a lot of business owners, and certainly when I first set up my business, I just wanted to sell something. Didn't really think about the end game. And then I just wanted to sell something else. And then, well, Katy, you remember, because I spoke to you at the time, I was suddenly like, Katy, I've sold all this stuff and I'm doing all of this stuff. And actually, I hate my life because I'm spending 4 nights a week in a hotel, not seeing my kids. And this business was supposed to give me freedom. And it's because there was never an end goal. So where people are now,
That's actually a great example, Jane. I remember that conversation really, really well.
Did a lot of this.
And and this is so true, because the difference here is building a model that, if you like, rather than trade time for money, is about optimizing how you make your money. But what I mean by that is, how do you make money with the least amount of effort, stress, and constraint? Because that's what I see a lot of recruitment business owners stuck in, or that they have got themselves in. So the business is designed around them. But what if we designed a business around ease and joy and freedom? And by the way, you haven't got to sacrifice profit or performance for that. There are ways in which you get that. But this is like building from pleasure, not pressure, but pleasure, and working. And you said something really important. Oh, you always say things that are important, Joe. You said something really critical just about 2 minutes ago, which was about, how do you start that? Like, what's the point in which you can get that clarity? To do it, you have to get super, super clear about what is it that the business I actually want to create. So not the one I think I should build, but what's the one that I want to create? And there's like 2 things, 2 requirements that you want to get clarity on. And this is what I spoke to somebody about yesterday, which was the first thing that I asked her was, okay, what is the life that you really want to lead? How do you want to live your life? And you touched on this, like, how do you want to live your life outside of work? Because you don't start a business to have a job. You start a business to create yourselves things in your life, right? Isn't it? It's about your balance, your freedom, your money, your financial freedom. And so how do you want to spend your days? What do you want to spend your time on?
Yeah.
Where do you want to put your energy? And then you absolutely have to commit to building that business, but only that business that gives you that life. So no matter what. So, and entrepreneurs, and you and I've got it, shiny squirrelitis, we have to be able to hold ourselves down and say, I'm only going to follow what it is that my heart wants, which, can be difficult when we can get distracted by other things.
Yeah, get distracted. We can make investments that possibly shiny squirrelitis. Do I need this? Do I need that? I was talking about this on one of my coaching calls actually yesterday, and because I was running through the business costs with the client, and I think I raised an eyebrow and said, those costs are higher than what I would expect for a business of your size. Like, what are they? And he listed them out. There were lots of really cool stuff. And my client asked the same question to me, and he said, what would you do if you were setting up a recruitment business tomorrow? And I said, look, I'm going to be really, really honest with you. That I'm from, for anybody in the UK, I'm from Yorkshire. We notoriously don't like to spend money. I was like, if I was going to set up a recruitment company, although there's some like fab tools that can make my life easier, I also know that the main thing that I have is a network and a phone, and they're the two things that I would need to invest in. And until I'm turning over, until I'm doing more than what I would expect my desk to do as a recruiter, I probably don't need all the stuff that you can now have in recruitment that Katy wasn't available to us when we were running desks. Whereas again, I think now and before I completely lose my train of thought, I don't mean don't invest. There are so many cool tools out there at the moment that makes running a recruitment business easier. But what I do mean is qualify your return on investment. If I'm going to invest in this piece of automation, what do I expect my return on investment to be? And this goes back to that optimization side.
Yeah.
What's the return on investment? What do I expect to get from it? How am I going to measure this? How long am I going to commit to this for? Is it 3 months, 6 months? Is it a year? As opposed to, I've got this tool and it's really cool. Because if that's the case, just go back to your phone. And I think I went a bit off piece there, but it's not unusual for me.
Well, I mean, it's a valid point. It's an absolutely valid point because, like we were saying earlier, squirrelitis, shiny squirrelitis, it is right now. I mean, there are so many tools, tech out there. I was looking at an advert yesterday, and it was something about, how guaranteeing that, I'm gonna put £1 million on your
Oh,
profit line.
I think I've seen the same
Did
one
you
on
see it?
Instagram. It keeps flashing up that it's fully automated, Google Voice. And I was like,
It's absolutely anyway.
yeah.
Yeah, and then hasten to add that you've got to spend goodness knows how much money on adverts to actually drive the machine, which obviously they don't tell you about until you probably get further through. But my point being, exactly as you're saying, there's all this stuff, right, which we're getting fed all the time, every single day, that actually is so distracting, so confusing for people. And you've hit the nail on the head there, which is, sometimes whether we like it or not, like basics, it's always going back to basics.
We're a people business. We look for people and we work with people. And oh God, we're drifting into
I
Jane's
know
challenges of AI. Um,
it might not be glamorous, but it gets you results.
you,
So let's talk about, because
yeah,
we're going to
let's
go off
move on
track.
before Jane goes fully off on a
Let,
so.
let's talk about the critical machines, right? So what is it that you need in your business? What's the how, right? What is it that you need in your business? I'm going to call it now the pleasure-led recruitment business instead of pressure, right? But what is it that you need in that pleasure-led recruitment business? Right. Well, you actually need 5 machines, but I'm going to talk to you about, or we're going to talk to you about 4, because the 5th one is your economic, which, by the way, if you get the other 4 right, is automatically driven.
Yeah.
Right. So the first one is your optimize, right? You need to be able to optimize. So what we mean by that is, well, in fact, let me give you all 4 and then we'll talk about them. So you need to optimize, you need a machine that optimizes, you need what we call your attraction machine, your conversion machine, and your delivery machine. So your optimize ensures that, first of all, that you build the business around your own superpowers, right? So you spend your time in your area of genius, like the things that you enjoy the most, that creates the most value for the business, that energizes you, that you absolutely love. So you're not working in the business, you're working on the business, but you're also working in the business where you want to work. That's the most important thing. The second thing is your attraction machine. That is about simple, a repeatable way for you to bring in clients and candidates consistently. So this is the machine that removes that feast and famine, and it also builds predictability in pipeline because you have that consistency coming in. But also, it's not relying solely on, again, you and your time and energy. The third thing is the conversion machine, and that's your sales process. So this is a system that turns your prospects into, high fee, high fit clients, like your best clients, who trust your expertise, who value your worth, who will pay you, the value that you are worth in return for your services. And then the fourth thing is your delivery machine, and that is your service offering. This is your unique 5-star client journey. I call it the bridge that takes your clients from, you know, the hell that they're in to the desired outcome that they want and that they need when they come to you. So this is your method. It's your promise. It's your value. And, you know, the most important thing about that is making sure that's repeatable and that it delivers your customer service without every part of that delivery machine being you. That's what's important. And that, of course, then, you know, creates better retention with your clients, etc., long-term impact. So that's what we're talking about here. Now, let's just break that down. So why is that optimized machine important? Well, I think we've probably covered that, haven't we, in terms of your
Data.
superpowers?
You've got to have the data.
But that's a good
And
point. I've got to have the data.
Yeah.
Attraction machine. Let's talk a bit about that, because I love the going back to basics with that. What do we mean by that? Because that's definitely a shiny squirrel out there right now.
Oh God, soapbox down. Yeah. So I think when people think attraction machine in the era of today, we all think about how can we do business development without doing business development? And in all honesty, if business development isn't your area of genius, isn't what gives you pleasure, then this is something you're going to have to think about outsourcing. However, let me know if you agree or not, Katy. I would outsource to a salesperson as opposed to a level of tech which is just going to do what tech does. This is still sales is still unless I've got my market completely messed up, it's still something that requires human connection. People will buy from people. So, but your attraction machine is just simply something that you do that you know brings returns. So that might be, oh God, Katy, as you know, in my spare time, I sell gym memberships. Don't ask, guys. But if my attraction machine is me stood on the street every Saturday afternoon for an hour handing out flyers, and I know that returns gym members, that's my attraction machine. I don't need anything else sexier than that if that works. And also that can be delegated to somebody else. If it's that simple. I think where we get lost and where business owners get lost is they think scalability is going to mean investment and is going to mean, again, more high tech qualification costs. Whereas I would argue that I said at the start, my network would be how I would launch my recruitment company. If that's your attraction machine, that's fine. How do we systemize it? How do we map it? How do we make sure that we're doing touch points? What's our value add? I'm working with a client on this at the moment. She's absolutely smashing it out of the park. And all we've got is a really simple touch point process for a year of where she's going back to people she knows and that know her. And she's got a process where she markets in. She's got some extra value add, etc. But is it process mapped? And I can almost feel some of my clients rolling their eyes at me if they're listening to this, because if it ain't written down and it's not put into some kind of documentation, then that's not an attraction machine. That's just you going, oh, I need some more business. Who can I ring today? Whereas if we systemize it, that's a machine. And I think about this now as a production line. So for anybody that's ever been into a factory, there's key points, there's certain things that happen, and then your end product drops off the end. That's your attraction machine. And for some people, I've got some clients that work with Google Ads and it works beautifully for them. I've got others that do messaging systems on different social media platforms and it works brilliantly for them. I've got some people that build their business off the back of referrals and that works brilliantly for them. I've got some people who build their business off the back of reference taking, which is how I built my business, and that works brilliantly for them. What they're not trying to do is 16 different routes. So if you choose one to go, that's actually my main route of entry to my business. Have I maximized it? Have I processed it? Can I teach somebody else this? Can somebody else press play on the production line? That's your attraction machine. Simple, repeatable, scalable.
And to identify your attraction machine, we need to look at history leaves clues. And so you can very easily see what is it? What's the 20% that's giving you 80% of your results, essentially? But what is that method that's working for you? Because you're right, Jane, I think what happens for a lot of people is And I see it all the time on LinkedIn or Facebook, like, somebody else is talking about a particular tool that they're using right now, and they might be promoting it, saying it's great. And all of a sudden we think, oh, well, I need some of that. I want that outcome that they're talking about. But actually, it doesn't mean that that tool is going to work for you, because if that's not the place that your candidates or clients are, and it's never been the way that you've ever generated them before, it could be a totally distracting
Yep.
and expensive experience to have if you go down that route of applying for it or buying it, when actually it gives you zero. So you absolutely need to know what that is first of all, and then, like you say, build that system. And the other thing that I would say on the attraction machine is, and this is so relevant, because when people come into our world and we teach them our fan club process, it's like, oh my God, I didn't realize it could be that easy and that fast for me to get, a business development machine set up. And it's because if everyone thinks they have to start the top of the funnel, so, when you think in marketing, top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, if they start at the top of the funnel, well, you've probably got 9 to 18 months of time frame in which it's going to take you to move that client from what we probably call I don't know, a non-buying client to a buying client. There's a period of time in which it takes, and we know that it takes around 5 to 30 touch points for that to happen. So if we start at the top of the funnel, we've got a very long time frame to our marketing strategy to develop that attraction machine. So that's the other thing that I'd say about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we want to go with ease, and we want to go with, the fastest, simplest route. Okay, conversion machine. So this is your process.
Yeah.
So what do we mean about this? Like, what's important about that conversion machine?
It's got to be, pardon my friend, shit hot. This is what people pay us for. That conversion of clients and conversions of candidates. So again, God, honestly, I sound so dull, but it's got to be process mapped. Like, how do you speak to a candidate, or how does your team speak to a candidate? Is that synergized across the business? Are you and if this is your, as a business owner, if this is your area of expertise, how have you mapped it? Like, if you're really good at it, then how have you mapped it so everybody else does what you do and says what you say? How have you identified what you're going to work on and what you're not going to work on? So that in terms of conversion, what are you saying yes to? What are you saying no to? Because as you will know, what we see a lot of in our world is when we meet burnt out, stressed out recruitment owners, typically the first thing that we do with them is we look at where they're spending their time and where the business is investing time. And normally what we would expect to see is a low conversion rate on jobs and a low conversion rate on candidates, which means 60, 70, 80% of their time, they're working on things that are never going to convert.
Yeah.
And our question would always be, well, what if you didn't? What
Yeah.
if you stopped working on those?
Yeah, that's an expensive machine if that's not working properly for you, because we're talking about having conversions that are a minimum of 50%, if not 85% in your business. And that's, if you're going to work contingent, that's the only way to work contingent. Otherwise, yeah, you are sort of, it's a very expensive method of working with your clients, service offering.
Isn't it? It's the busy fool mentality that even hits business owners, and it's a strategy based on hope rather than process.
Yeah.
Hope is great. Big fan of hope. However, I don't hope that I'm going to get paid at the end of the month. Like, I need to know I'm going to get paid at the end of the month. That's quite important to me as a business owner. So yeah, your conversion is, you've got to understand, like, I suppose this comes down again to what's my niche, what's the quality of job I work on, what's the quality of candidate I work on, how can I measure that? So if I've got a team, how can I go, actually, we don't work on that level of role, we only work on this level? Like, what are the benchmarks you've got in place? And that's how we build out a machine in that area, is by making very clear points. I always argue that I've got one of my old clients who has a board, a wall, like very similar to mine, but probably with slightly more decoration on it, where it's got a list of their key criteria. So it's visual in the office at all times. Nobody can work a job that doesn't meet that criteria because they won't place it. And then that's the business owner who's paying a team member time to be unsuccessful. Because
Yeah,
that's
that's the truth. Yeah.
merciless.
It's a very, very good point. So this is all about working smarter, not harder, really getting return. You know, like we were saying earlier, isn't it? It's not trading time for money. It's actually about working with those clients that value you, that you enjoy working with, and that you have a very, very high conversion of. So that's what we're talking about there. That's fundamental. And then the fourth thing is the delivery machine. So as I mentioned, that's your unique service offering, and everyone has one. And what blows my mind every time when we work with people is like there's so many hidden gems in how people deliver that bridge for their clients, their methodology, that they don't even realize that they do. So, and there's a way in which we help our clients to tease that out so that they can build a service offering that is totally unique. And right now in the marketplace, that is fundamental. It is so important because if you look at all of the clients out there, they have so many businesses now have their own internal team. And the thing about those internal teams is they've got better and better. Why? Because a lot of them are ex-recruiters. And so they come from a background where they know how to recruit. They know how to use LinkedIn as a CRM. They know how to go and find these candidates. And so you are up against, internal recruitment teams are good and they can fill a good proportion of their jobs now. That isn't where they're going to use an external supplier. They're going to use an external supplier in the areas where they can't. That means your delivery machine has to be absolutely spot on, differentiate you and cut through the noise and deliver more than a CV supplier or a resourcing support to a client. That is not going to cut the mustard anymore. You have to be able to go with more. You've got to add way more value than that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. And you've got to know what that is, where it stands you out in the market, and how you can communicate that to prospect clients.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's one more thing. I mean, we have talked about it, but I just want to label this again, that ties it all together in terms of the architecture of your business. And that is it must be designed around you being in flow. So as we said at the beginning, that's clear on what you do best. That's also ensuring that you build the right support around you. So when you know your area of genius, you also know what isn't your area of genius and what you don't like. And you have to, it's critical. If you're going to hire people, you're going to have a team, even if that's one person or two people or 10 people, you have to build the right support around you. So you need to know what it is that you're great at and where you want to be in that business, what's going to be your role and responsibility, and then who do you need around you, because you need an operating model fundamentally that is going to drive profit, not just output, and not just revenue, but profit. So you need to surround yourself with the right level of skills and the right people in those areas that aren't your area of flow.
Yeah. And I suppose after working with business owners for a very long time now, my non-coaching, quite direct style would be, like, stop it. If you're doing stuff that doesn't give you joy and you're doing it because you think you have to do it. So if you're a salesperson, but you're doing your management accounts, go pay an accountant and take back the 3 or 4 days that you spend at the end of every quarter buried in numbers and go and sell more. My general mantra for my own companies and for anybody that I work with is, if you weren't doing that, what would you be doing? And whatever that is, whatever gives you that love and passion, that's what you should be doing as much as humanly possible. So we want you doing that 80%, 70% of the time. And then we create support mechanisms around you that can do the rest. And if you're a solopreneur, that can just be outsourcing. And if you've got a team, that's not necessarily bringing in people just like you. And I think this is the challenge for many recruitment owners. They think if I could just clone me,
Mhm.
just clone me if I had another me. We don't need other yous. We need to think about, right, so by default, I believe a lot of the business owners we work with tend to be quite natural salespeople, or they go and win the clients, but then they're finding the candidates and then they're paying the bills and buying the milk, etc. Imagine a world where all you do is go out and network. And
Mm.
you come back and you have, I don't know, a much calmer version of you. Somebody who actually doesn't like being on the stage, but will sit quite happily all day long and work through LinkedIn and send messages. And then you've got another version who will pick up the phone and speak to those candidates, but again, would rather, beat their head against a wall than sell. Suddenly, you've then got three people who are like this huge extension that works systematically together. And that's when you start. And so you're out doing your thing, and then everybody else is kind of picking it up. I always remember the happiest I ever was in recruitment, Katy, was when we worked together years ago. And I would go out and win a job. And I always thought of myself, I'm quite visual. I thought of myself as like a little blackbird, and I'd be out flying through the streets of London, and I'd go pick up a job, and I'd come back and I'd drop it in the office, and then I'd go again because somebody else took over and filled it for me. And then off I'd go again with my, so you can see how my visual mind works. But if that's you in flow, then figure out a way, and that's, sorry, that's really blasé of me. Obviously, get a great coach and we'll support you in helping you figure out that way. But look at, oh God, I've told this story before on the podcast, and sorry guys, I'm going on now. But I remember when I ran my training consultancy, I was sat, Katy, you've heard this story before. I was sat on a bank holiday and I was handwriting out, I'd done it myself on Canva. I'd created like a portfolio of my training, and I was going to try posting things to my 600 prospects that I had. So I sat there on a bank holiday, handwriting out a short letter, because the personal touch really works, handwriting out the envelope whilst my three kids stood at the door of the lounge where I was waiting, because I'd promised we could go out that day. And I was about 2 hours in and my hand was starting to ache, and I heard my youngest child walk away, tramps up the stairs and say to her brother and sister, she always does this, we're not going anywhere. And it was a real light bulb in my life. And I just thought, I've got a virtual assistant. And because I paid her 25, 26 pound an hour, the northerner in me was like, I can do it myself. I'll do it. It's bank holiday. I've got nothing else on. My clients have gone. Whereas, and also my handwriting's bloody awful. So I had to write really, really slowly to make it legible for anybody. And this was where I think I really made a big transition from being chief of frigging everything to, actually, if I pay somebody £25 an hour for 4 hours, that's £100, and I get to not listen to my daughter go upstairs and say mum doesn't spend time with me. I get to go out. And then that became my mantra before. And I always remember my accountant going, oh God, your expenses have gone up. And I was like, yeah, and so have my profits. Because as soon as I stopped trying to be everything to all people and was like, actually, what am I really good at? I'm good at selling training and I'm good at delivering training. So that's it. That's all I'm going to do. And then
Yeah.
everything else, I built a team.
Yeah, you're unique, brilliant. Stay in that zone and spend, like you say, 70% of your time in that zone. That's exactly what you want to do. So let's just quick recap then. So what we're talking about here is the shift from that chief of frigging everything to that CEO of your pleasure-led business. And so we're talking about, what can you expect? Like, what's the difference? We're talking 12-hour days suddenly become focused 4-day weeks. This is possible.
Yep.
You know, reactive firefighting becomes a proactive system, a system-built business. And instead of those revenue peaks, predictable profit, peace of mind, and rather than frustration, empowered, and a much happier team. That's what we're talking about. So that is that kind of wraps us up, I think, Jane, for today. So if you would like the system to this, we're going to drop it below in the podcast so you can actually click on the link and we will share the framework with you for this 7-figure £1 million+ recruitment business. And of course, if you want to have a chat to us about that, we are always open and willing to do that too. So we look forward to seeing you again on the next podcast. Thanks for listening today.
Bye.